See, this is the stupid. Somebody that's installing headers for the first time, this is the one thing you need to understand. That's gonna suck to get to. All right, well. Looks like I may have to remove some studs. Look, these things don't hang down any lower than the factory exhaust did. It's time we install some long tube headers on our 21 GT. So as you all know, we've been tuning on the 21. With that being said, we went to an E85 tune last night and the car's doing really good. I went the cheap route here. Hopefully it doesn't bite me in the ass. These are the Speed Engineering 1 7/8" long tube headers. Here's the exhaust ports. This is what you guys really need to pay attention to.
Celebrate freedom and horsepower with this new shirt from the Drag Swag. It's got a Fox body front and center, super patriotic. Guys, 4th of July is coming up. You're gonna wanna rock this shirt. You'll be the envy of any get-together, whether it be a barbecue, fireworks, doesn't matter. Check us out over at the Drag Swag.
Don't get these super cheap headers that all the welds build up, you know, in here like this. These are actually really smooth. It may have like a bump or two in there that I could take out, but it's a recessed weld. Spot for your O2. Yeah, I mean, fairly lightweight. They're not super heavy. I didn't realize it comes with a Speed Engineering tag right there. I'm gonna go ahead and get all this stuff out of the box, then we're gonna look at it, see what all we got, and we're gonna start disassembling this thing, and hopefully I can get the headers on today. Also today, we've got to get the engine in Berger's car. I'm working on the battery tray right now. Go ahead and get all that out of the way. I have never installed headers on one of these cars. I'm just going off of what I've seen online. So I'm gonna take the safe approach and take the most stuff that I can off. I'm the type guy, as I learn what corners I can cut, I'll do that. But to start with, let's just go ahead and do it the way that we know will work best. So if you remember, we actually have a Flowmaster muffler on this thing now. So I'm hoping that you're gonna start to hear that Flowmaster a little bit better than you do with these stock manifolds and cats, because you really can't tell that I put a Flowmaster on it. Anyway, let me get all this stuff unboxed and we'll take a quick overview of it, and then I'm just gonna get started. I'm not doing a step-by-step on it. There's tons of videos out there, and I don't know what I'm doing anyway to give you guys a step-by-step, so. The headers look really good. I'm telling you guys, this is impressive. I mean, you can tell that they went in, smoothed that out. They didn't leave the welds. I guess they took a machine or either did it by hand and went in and just cleaned out the ports, the exhaust ports. That's awesome. Over here, we've got our O2 extensions, clamps, multitude of different clamps and stuff like that. You get tons of options. Bolts, header bolts, gaskets, and all these pipes are 3-inch pipes. And I did go with an X pipe, although I wanted an H. They didn't have an H, so we just went X. It'll be fine for what we're trying to do with a Flowmaster, hopefully. Anyway, that's it. Pretty nice little kit for this much money. I can't remember how much it was, but it's pretty damn cheap in my opinion compared to some of the other stuff out there. With all that being said, let's just go ahead and get into today's video. Anybody that's done this before, you might be looking at some of this saying, oh, you don't have to do that. Well, I don't know that, so I have no clue what I'm doing. So I'm just kind of taking it safe on this. You know, on the Fox body stuff, I know what I can get away with and what I don't have to take off. But with this type stuff, I have no clue what I'm doing. So yeah, I'll learn. Is that absolutely necessary to have to take off? My God, I hate panels and doing stuff like that. That is the worst. All right, so here we are. I've got one motor mount out, as you can see, not too bad. And I'm gonna go ahead and start taking the bolts out for the stock manifold. I went ahead and marked this because I'm gonna have to take the steering knuckle loose. And should be good though after that. Go ahead and get that thing out of the way and make getting the exhaust on and off a lot easier. So. That's what we're looking at. So while I have you guys down here, let's just go ahead and see how good this new header fits. Probably gonna try to reuse the gaskets. Man, these things are a lot lighter than the factory stuff. We're definitely gonna have to probably go up higher. All right, well, looks like I may have to remove some studs because I just can't find the room to get this in. So it's a pretty tight fit. I ended up having to take all the studs out of the bottom, but I just went ahead and put them all back in but one. I couldn't really get this stud in back here on the back corner of the driver's side, so I just left it out. And I'm just reusing the factory hardware, as most people do, because it's just simple. You know, you've got studs. You can always put the studs right back in. And I don't know, it just kind of keeps you from cross-threading crap. So I'd prefer to stick with studs if I can. Anyway, all we got to do now is tighten this back up and move to the other side. And we got one more, and I think it is the very front. No, where is it at? So I'm sure you guys have watched plenty of other videos instead of just mine when it comes to header install. So you already know that this one bolt up here on the front can be kind of a biatch. So we're going to try to come in from another direction with it. Do you guys do the same thing I do? Just tape up your swivels? Bad about that. All right, so I know you can't see what I'm doing and you're way back there, but this is the type you have to have patience for, and guess what? Your boy don't have patience. Nope. Okay. All right, hey, really? See, this is the stupid. All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna leave that one loose in the front so I can go ahead, tighten up the exhaust down here and then get the motor mount on it, because I think I can get that one from the top. Fucking Rooster is doing his thing. Hey, that's just part of it. When you're on my channel, what you gotta deal with. I'll get back to you guys actually here in just a second. That's gonna suck to get to. Got one more bolt all the way at the front, so. Well, I can tell you that it wasn't fun. You had to kind of do it blindly. This is aggravating. I'm not gonna lie to you. It is aggravating, but it's doable. It's absolutely doable. I think any of you guys can do this. Here's the biggest tip I can give you. So somebody that's installing headers for the first time, this is the one thing you need to understand. There are certain bolts that will come out easy with your stock manifolds, and then there are some bolts that are hard to get to. When you install your headers, it could be the opposite. So that really hard bolt on the manifold may be easy to get to on the header, or vice versa. That is extremely important to understand, because let me get you up here where you guys can see me. So what that's gonna make you do is have to find a new angle to get into that bolt. And it's gonna freak you out more than likely, because you're gonna be like, I know I just got to this thing earlier. Trust me, that's just part of it. So with that being said, I'm gonna lift the car up and I'm gonna show you a few things that you need to know going into this. Also, I'll show you from up top. So we are using a lift, as you can see, but I have a jack under the engine right now. And if you look, there's the bolts. Like you see the access to the bolts. It's extremely tight, but you come in through here like this, and you can use a ratchet wrench or something like that, and you'll be okay. But you have to lift the engine up, and you have to take this battery compartment out right here to do that. Now, to get your stock manifolds off, you don't have to do that. You don't even have to touch any of this up here. You can leave your battery in place. You can get to every bolt from underneath the car. But the way the tubes are on the headers and how much bigger restricts access, okay? This is the one thing that threw me for a loop. So the very front bolt on the top of your header up there is almost impossible to get to. The way that I got it off with the manifolds, it wouldn't work to put the bolt back in. Well, let me show you guys something. If you look, there's a bolt up there. Maybe you guys can see that. So here's what you have to do. You have to unbolt this harness here from the body of the car and slide it over. And that gives you access up here. See if I can show it to you, to that bolt. Shout out to the YouTubers that are always giving you that like nice close-up zoomed in shot. I'm not that guy, I suck at that shit. Here's what I want y'all to take note of. Look, these things don't hang down any lower than the factory exhaust did. Well, with the cats. The cats hung down just as low as the headers. Like, these things are nice and tucked. No clearance issues over here at all, and 0 clearance issues over here. We still don't even have the engine jacked up yet. But look at that, sweet, right? All right, with that being said, now I have to put the motor mount back on, and the way I'm doing that is, well, over here. So here's how I'm lifting this. This is a 10R80 transmission, and I'm gonna lift it from the transmission here. Boop, there it is. It's been me right by myself, and it's probably, I've been like 4 hours into this. All right, let's take a quick look at how all this fits. I ain't gonna lie to you, it's pretty damn good if you ask me. Look at that, everything just pushed right into place. Didn't take but a couple of tries to kind of get everything right. And look at that. Nothing's tight yet, of course, but that's gonna work out freaking awesome, y'all. So we got some decisions to make. I really wanna put this Flowmaster in right here, but I just don't think it's gonna work out on this go round. I think we just need to go ahead and get it together, and then we'll come back and put us a 3-inch Flowmaster in here. Because that's going to get into this area right here, which I really just don't want to, but we're going to have to. So we'll figure it out, but for now, let me go ahead and just get everything buttoned back up. I'm going to have to do some modifying, obviously, right here to make this work, but underneath, everything worked out perfect. The only thing I didn't like was I had to put a couple of tack welds right here, which is something I used to do anyway back in the day, but the exhaust was still kind of spinning, so the muffler would drop. So now everything is nice and tight. Got it all buttoned up. Look at that. The only thing is we do have an X pipe. I really wanted an H pipe, but they didn't have them in stock, so, or wasn't an option, I guess. But anyway, y'all, that's it. Looks really good. I like the way this kit fits. So check it out. Transmission lines are completely out of the way. I see no issues at all. This is kind of close to the linkage right here. A few little things to wrap up. I just noticed I left the ground off up there, so I'm gonna get that done. We'll lower this thing down. I'll put the battery back in it, all that stuff up, and we're gonna listen to it. Y'all, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's gonna sound like but for now, we can always leave it in quiet mode and we'll be good to go. That's so bad. Hey, put it in quiet mode. Berger's gonna change it to quiet mode. Now, I like it. Rev it up a little bit quiet. Not too bad. I don't mind that much. All right, track mode. So here's track mode. All right, guys. Well, that's it. It's loud for sure. Oh yeah. Yeah, Mike kind of likes it. Yes, it's not horrible.
Was raspier.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so maybe it's not that bad. It's raining, as you can see, so we're probably not going to take it down the road today. We do have an E85 tune, so guys, hang around. We'll take it down the road, we'll test it, we'll get it back to the track. We got a lot of stuff coming up for this car. But as far as the speed engineering kit goes, guys, I like it. I didn't have any problems with anything touching, rubbing, or anything. So if you guys are wondering, I think it's worth the money. It was only like $800 for everything you saw under there. You cannot beat that. Oh, it's a lot better than 2,500. So
That first startup was rough.
yeah, the startup was horrible.
But in track mode, I don't think it's bad. I don't know how it's going to be under load. I don't know if it's
Probably
gonna,
horrible.
If it's going to do that clapping.
I'm sure it is.
But
Yeah,
under wide open throttle will probably sound good.
probably so. And you said it didn't sound that bad to you. Okay. Well,
I like it.
there it is, guys. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this video up. And as always,
Thanks for watching.
all right, guys, we're just going to stop right here. He said do it in normal mode. So that's what we're going to do. So we got Dennis on the phone with us right now. He's probably going to be our tuner for the channel.
Looking forward to it.
That's right. So you're with you have a company, All Stock Racing. So give us a little bit of your background.
You know, I'm an enthusiast with cars, just like most of the rest of the people in your group are. You know, just do it as a hobby and hot rod and kind of fell in love with it. And it's been, you know, pretty much a passion through my life. And, you know, got into tuning cars and having a dyno. And, you know, years ago I had done a couple and basically just kind of, you know, it really stuck with me. And it was one of those things where it was exciting. You know, you're making power, you're picking up speed at the track and power and
Yeah.
everything else. And you just, you know, it becomes a passion, you know, and you turn it into a business. And, you know, it's very useful, you know, it's helpful, it's needed. It's one of those things that, you know, can't be overlooked. And, you know, over time, you know, as you do it, you get better at it, and you just, you know, it lures you in, man. You know, it's one of those things that you just become super passionate about, and, you know, you roll with it.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of business, that's not the only thing you do. So you are a busy man, and we want to go ahead and let everybody know that how can we word this? You're going to kind of interview maybe people, kind of pick and choose what you're able to do because you are extremely busy. You don't just tune vehicles for people.
I've got you know, I'm like a third generation glazer as well. I've got a glass company my father owns. I've been with him for years, and, you know, I've always done the Mustangs as, like I said, a passion. You know, that if I didn't have two children, it would be a whole lot more that I'd be able to do. But like you said, I am limited. But when it comes to tuning, you know, it's something that I definitely can get involved with people on more of a one-on-one basis. I don't want to tune to the masses, so to speak. You know, we've got a lot of abilities here, and we've wrote a lot of calibrations over the years, and I just feel that, you know, 90% of your crowd I could take care of when it comes to their tuning needs, you know, but I just don't want to get into a point to where you have 100 phone calls coming in a day.
Guys, we've run into this problem before. It can happen overnight. You know, tons of people start calling, and look, it's one guy, okay? So he's going to do the best that he can do to work people in, but I always like to bring the tuner into the channel that's really good and can help people. So me and you have talked a lot. I mean, we probably already spent 6 hours on the phone talking, and we're a lot alike. You know, we have a lot of the same interest and views and everything else. I really like the way you go about doing things, and I think the guys will as well. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. This is not an advertisement. He doesn't need the business. It's not that. This is just letting you guys know that, hey, we have found one of us that tunes. You know what I mean? That's kind of where we're at with this. And speaking of which, we have started tuning on the 21.
You know, we've gone into it and we've done some fuel delivery optimization and some ignition timing adjustments, and really got the thing to cooperate and make some power as far as the way it shifts and drives and handling some of the power enrichment and, you know, removing some of the factory restrictions that are on it, you know, your basic stuff that you do with the mods that you have on it. So I'm interested to see how it goes, you know, talking with you and you know, working back and forth, logging it. It sounds like it's you know, you're pretty happy with it. So
Yeah, it's picked up for sure.
there's a lot of unlocked potential when it comes to these cars. You know, the factory, they're quite mild, man, the way they put them out, you know, and they gotta do that just to keep everything soft, keep everything livable. And when you can start bringing the RPM out of those things and bringing the spark advance into them, they respond really, really well, man. So they're kind of easy, you know what I mean, when it comes from that point of view, you know, compared to what you had to do back in the day to make power. They're sophisticated, but they're capable at the same time, you know.
For sure. Well, you know, back in the day, a tune didn't do a lot to a Fox body. I mean, if you were looking for a couple extra horsepower to beat your buddy, I mean, sure, but chips and things like that. But tunes, I remember, putting heads, cam, intake, all that stuff on these cars and no tune at all on an old Fox body. You can kind of work around it and things like that. But these cars you can't do that with, obviously. So you go changing too much stuff, well, very little, and you need a tune. I can tell you've already tuned a bunch of these cars because the first tune you sent was already on point. You know what I mean? Like, it was good. I thought we were going to have to go through this long process of revisions and logs and everything else, and really no.
I've done several of them. I wouldn't say, compared to some of these guys that are tuning them where they're writing 20 calibrations a day, 30 calibrations a day. I'm nowhere near that status, you know what I mean? But I've got a dyno shop, and we've sat down and we've made, several different base templates that we've done with them. And so I've got a pretty good, slate to start with, as far as like I wouldn't call it a catalog yet, but I've got several base tunes. And the thing with these cars is they're pretty similar. You know what I mean? You're having, most of them are going to have some type of a JLT, a header, but when it comes down to it, you're not going in there and modifying compression ratios, a lot. So a lot of the base calibrations that you do work on most of them, and then you've got to, go back and do some revisions. And that's where I like to really deal with the customer that I'm dealing with, the guy that I'm dealing with on his car or girl, you know what I mean? So that we can kind of get it tuned to their liking, shift points, firmness of shifts, RPMs, really try to do a quality calibration overall. So, that's why we went through it through a few different revisions and trying to get things on point, and I think I'm pretty sure we're right where we need to be with yours, man. So I'm looking forward to you getting back out, lining up against some of the cars you've already raced, getting to the track with it.
So you can tune Terminator X.
Terminator X, Diablo Sport, those are the two that I mainly do the Fox bodies with. It's a little bit more involved doing it. You've got to spend a little bit more time up front, but Fox bodies, I love them, man. That's what I grew up racing. I've had many, many, many combinations myself, so I've got a pretty good library when it comes to those as well. So I pretty much can handle most Fox bodies. It's just the guys that are putting them together, and the cars have got to be right to start with, which, that can be a challenge at times. So if you can work together with each other and be on the same page, most of the time you can do a good calibration as well. The tools are there now, especially with Terminator X, to be able to do that, where you can actually data log, you can email, there's things you can do remotely with them that it's a little bit trickier doing with Diablo Sport just because you don't have the data logger capabilities. So yeah,
Yeah.
Terminator X would probably be a better candidate for that. But even with that, if you've got, the capabilities to get voltages off of your mass air meter, and you got wide bands and a way to record it, if you got the right data logger on a Fox body, you still can do those with some of the older softwares as well.
Speaking of which, that's something that I do want to cover real quick because this is extremely important, especially for the Fox body guys that are going to want to tune. So if you compare it to like a stock Coyote car, most of these are, dare I say, cookie cutter, but most people aren't doing heads, cams, and things like that. They're either, cold air intake, long tubes, maybe a blower, and you kind of know what you got here. Well, if we go back to the Fox bodies and we're going to do, say, a Terminator X on this, and you want this thing tuned, guys, you have got to go through a checklist, okay? And this is something that he's going to want to talk to you about as well. Look, there are so many variables that go into this. If you think about it, if we're trying to make a Fox body fast, what are we going to do? We're going to put heads, we're going to put cams, probably built engine. God knows what the compression is. Do you have any intake leaks? Like, there's so many things that are different and that can go astray.
Fuel
Versus,
system calibration for the injectors, there's a lot of different pieces that you need to have the information versus, like you said, something that's, kind of more of a cookie cutter, so to speak.
yeah, I don't really have a better term for it, but not to offend anybody, but essentially that's what it is. I mean, at this point, it's kind of like going back to the 0304 Cobra days, and everybody did a pulley or a ported blower or whatever. Nobody was really changing heads. Nobody was doing that. They were a lot easier to kind of, you knew they were put together. With this, guys, you may have just literally put a set of roller rockers on it, and now you want to tune. But what did the guy do before you? Or is the intake leaking? How's the fuel system? Voltage, all this stuff matters. So just make sure that you contact whatever tuner you're using and kind of get a checklist from them, if you will. I think that'll help everybody out because What you can't do is you can't bring your problem to a tuner and expect them to be your mechanic. Okay, that's where you get into a bunch of money and all sorts of other issues.
When you're going back to the Coyotes, you know, you've got a bunch of guys that do like the, you know, weekend warriors that like to race them. They're still street cars. So you know, when you're tuning them, you got to keep that in mind as far as drivability, you know, and as well as, you know, them holding up over time. So
Yeah.
certain mods, you know, are doable, certain mods aren't. You know, when it comes to streetable mods, you know, blowers to a certain level, fuel systems to a certain level. You know, I think that's more of the of what people are after these days is the Coyote tuning. You know, the older Fox body stuff is those are really those are really custom calibrations, man. I mean, you can't really take information from one and put it onto the next like you can on the newer cars, like you said, just because you know
Yeah.
the variance is just so different that it just makes it hard, you know.
Well, look, guys, we're not going to get too deep into this. I just wanted to kind of introduce Dennis and All Stock Racing to everybody because he's worked with me, and I'm telling you, it's been such a good experience. And you know, things have went really smooth. The car, every time we get a revision, this thing is just quicker and quicker. When you first start with a car, I guess especially a 10R80 car, you typically start with two separate tunes.
I usually go through and get the transmission shifting right and get everything, you know, shifting properly. That way you don't have the issue of trying to bring in extra torque with the engine and having things go awry that way. Usually once you get everything dialed in and pretty stable and to your liking as well, you know what I mean? Making sure you're not hitting limiters where it's shifting, it's not too harsh, you know what I mean? Because you can adjust shift firmness in several areas, the same with the speed of it. And you know, it's kind of, you know, you got to sit with your customer ahead of time on that and try to visualize or at least understand what they want out of it. You know, I know one time we put a revision in there where you noticed a difference on it shift, and I think you know, you liked it a little bit softer, so we softened it back up, you know. And
Yeah.
then once you get all that stuff stabilized and you get everything right, then you can go back into the engine, you know what I mean, and
Mhm.
start putting in some power into it. And it's just I just usually do it that way because it's easier. You can do it all at one time, but it's just easier to data log when you're doing one system at a time than when you put the two together. And it's kind of a nice experience for you as well as a, you know, a first time guy with the Coyote to kind of
Yeah.
see that.
I guess we need to cover what we're using to tune the car with. So we're using HP tuners, RTD. For a lot of you Fox body guys, and I know a lot of you guys that are watching obviously have Coyotes as well, but coming from a Fox body, you know, being able to use my phone to data log was just crazy. And you get to send your logs through your phone. You know, everything's Bluetooth. It's awesome. It's been so good. So whenever I data log a car and then upload it, you get a notification, you can see it, you can view it, and then you send the new revision out or whatever, and it's right. You can do it all from the phone. It's been so convenient.
Yeah, the remote tuning delivery network, you know, it's really a slick setup. You got
Yeah.
to really give HP tuners credit on it because it's, you know, they give given you the tools that you needed. You know, I can write a channel list of certain things I want to data log. It doesn't confuse you with trying to sit down and open up an editor or a data logger and try to configure all that to work. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
done. You know, you go out, you hit a couple buttons on your phone, you Bluetooth it, it sends me all the information. I'm able to read it all, go back through it, edit it, and then at the same time, I can send you a tune and it puts it right back into your tool. You know, as soon as you sync up with your phone, which is not a real difficult thing to get through to learn either. They kind of made that communication easy. It takes a little bit of work to do it, but it's not super difficult, you know, with a little instruction. And you know, you hit a couple buttons, it sends a tune into your car, and you know you're off. And if you're at the track, you can make revisions doing that. There's a lot of tools on your phone that you can do now, and you know you got code reading capabilities, you know, tuning capabilities, data log capabilities, all in one. And it's pretty interesting, man. You know,
Yeah.
they've got it high tech, you know.
It is so different and it's so much easier than say the Terminator X when you got to have a laptop out and everything else. So it was nice. It was a nice change of pace. If you guys are going Terminator X, which I recommend, you know, with the old wiring and everything else on these cars at this point, you might as well just go Terminator X. There are plenty of guys out there that can tune your car for you, and you've got about everything you could possibly need for that Fox body to be tuned. That Terminator X offers a lot of options, and That's really what I recommend.
Yeah, when you get everything upgraded to a Terminator X, you get rid of the A9L, you get rid of all the old wiring and circuitry. I mean, things are just so much faster. The car
Mhm.
runs so much smoother when you get them right. Oh yeah, Andrew Hanlon. Yep, we're
Yeah.
working on his setup now. He's got a pretty hot setup. Him and his buddy. They're those guys are great, man. Those cars are coming around, and Adam's gonna be bringing his out here pretty soon. So hopefully we can get his running. 950s, 960s. I think he'll be happy. And Adam Moldenhauer, he's got his, and it's more of like a 930s, 940s, all motor, Gen 3 setup in that one with a Cobra Jet on it. And Andrew, he's a solid guy, man. You need transmissions. That's definitely the guy you want to talk with.
For sure. If you guys need anything, you go to Hanlon Motorsports over there. I mean, hell, look who his dad is, Bangin' Bob Hanlon. You actually come highly recommended from Andrew Hanlon. So that's how we got to, talking and things like that. And man, it's just been seamless. So
Yep, we've had some fun.
anyway, look, man, I just want to thank you for coming on the channel and helping everybody out, giving us this information. And I'll send everybody over to your Facebook page. They can
All
look at
right.
you over there.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to working with you in the future and working with your guys and, seeing what we can do and have some fun in the process. And it's been great, man. Great experience all the way around and looking forward to continuing with you.
All right, y'all. Well, that's Dennis at All Stock Racing, and we'll catch back up with you guys